You're listening to Everything Out There with your host, Steve Stockton.
Hello, friends. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Everything Out There. I'm your host, Steve Stockton, here on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. Joining me tonight, I have a couple of paranormalists, frequent visitor, Sysco Murdoch, and coming back for the second time, or no, actually, this is, I think, her third time, Lynn Monet. Lynn, was this is this your second or third time here? I forget.
Third time, maybe even fourth time. I think it is the third time. Yeah, but I'm
Okay,
counting on
it's been
having.
a few, and Cisco's been here
Yeah.
like half a dozen. So, but anyway, I thought I'd have these ladies in tonight. They're both paranormalists, and we'll just have a paranormal potpourri and talk about whatever strange things are on our mind. It's we're into August now, so spooky season is coming up. Nicole's already got the house decorated here. What's going on in your worlds, paranormal wise, ladies?
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead and
Lynn.
go first. You go. Oh, I was going to have you go first, Cisco. I just came back from the bash. Actually, it was my first time to Pennsylvania. It was my first time to the Gettysburg Bash, and it was really a great time. Between the two hotels, they had everything connected, and there were all kinds of things in both lobbies. So if ever you do get to go, make sure that you go into both hotels because they have different things going on in both, as well as the conference room and all that area back around there. But definitely don't miss out on a bus tour. I meant to take one. I'm going to take one next year when I go. But it was wonderful meeting so many people of like mind. And Pam did an amazing job with the Gettysburg Bash. I was fortunate enough to get to stay in an Airbnb with two other couples that were friends, and so it was nice, we all went to dinner together and stuff like that, and so it was nice. We actually had dinner with the new paranormal group. It's called Paranormal. They're just filming now their first season, so we got pictures and stuff taken with them, and of course the Batman was there, and that Michael guy with the white thing. But it was a great time, and I really enjoyed it. So that's one of the things that I did. I do have some things coming up. I did hit a deer on the way home and kind of messed up my car. I've got plans to go to Virginia for two paranormal events that are weekends apart, and to do both of those, as well as I'm going to be on some shows coming up, some podcasts coming up, and my Gaia show is out with George Norrie on Beyond Belief. It was released a couple of months ago. So it's just been real busy.
A lot of stuff going on there. What about you, Cisco? Did you get to go to the bash this year?
I haven't done a damn thing, Steve.
She was moving.
I'm just, yeah. I mean, we do this every day, It's amazing to be in this. There's always something. We talk about it when we all get together on a show. Steve's been on my show. I've been on Lynn's show. Lynn's been on my shows. Lynn, Steve, and I have all been on each other. It's a comfortable situation because we don't have to do any preliminaries ahead of time. We all know what each other about where each other are in if you can call it an understanding, a comfortable spot, I think. Where we sit in the paranormal. And every once in a while, we'll bump into somebody that comes way out of left field and, tells you, ghosts are all made out of green jello or something. And you got to okay, because that's where they are. I don't think there's any wrong place to be in this, but there is definitely a comfort with being able to sit with people who just are open-minded about, they don't argue about somebody's experience. They don't, are you sure, it had red eyes? Are you sure they weren't blue because mine had blue and yours can't have red because, that makes it, all of that stuff is just gone. And I think that that's one of the things that happens too, when you go to a paranormal convention or anything like that, UFO, Bigfoot, there's thousands of different names combinations. But that's the thing. I think what we also need to do is maybe at these conferences, just set out everybody in a big, room where everybody can talk. Nobody's more important than anybody else. And, stand up and say, hey, what's the most amazing thing that you've ever, experienced? Was it, it might not have been an experience for yourself, but did you read a true account of an experience that just really set and you in a different spot, and what was it and why, you know? Because everybody is always running around those things, and everybody at the different tables, each team or person or experiencer or whatever it may be, they have that one piece or that, a couple of pieces of information, and it really seems to be, we just can't melt together somehow and get, okay, this is where we are now. Steve and I try to do this all the time on Mondays, where we'll go back to like the 60s and say, well, they had the same, they're talking the same conversation then as we're having now. What have we done with 50 years? You know what I mean? But it doesn't really matter that we're not falling on any specific concrete answers. It's more of comfort zones, I think. And it's really nice to be in a comfort zone, a paranormal zone, I guess, comfort zone, with people where you can just talk about it and they understand what you're saying, and you're not worried about, oh gosh, the last time I
Yeah.
told this story, I forgot to mention the green sweater, and because I didn't mention the green sweater this time, they're going to think I made it up.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that.
We all know what we saw and what we experienced and what we heard, and we all know that each other knows that. So we don't have anything to prove to one another.
Yeah.
Because none of us are skeptics. We're all believers and have had our own experiences. We're experiencers and paranormalists, and it's nice to just chat with like-minded people.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. And the thing is too is for people that are going to be listening in, this is not the 101 class, this is the advanced class. So and it's nice to have that, because we can talk openly about these things. Something I did want to mention as a side note, tonight is the Lion's Gate. It is the opening for manifestation, and it is a Lion's Gate on steroids because it's mixed in with a new moon. So anybody out there that, and it does kind of overshadow for a few days, I think until August 10th or something like that. But like today is the biggest day. So please, people, if you are not familiar with the Lion's Gate, Google it, find out how to manifest your dreams, and definitely do that today, and put it out there. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've been reading up on that a little bit. A lot of people are talking about it, and I've been watching the moon signs because of the coming baby. Now he's 4 weeks and 5 days, I think, from today, but I think he's going to be here a little earlier. You got that blue moon, the sturgeon moon, coming on the 19th. Wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't show up in that week, but remains to be seen.
I got goosebumps on that. I yeah.
Cool. That's little man. Little man's coming.
Wow, only 4 weeks. Where did the time go? It was like,
Yeah,
it was.
I'm telling you, we found out New Year's Day that we were expecting, and just we were thinking, wow, for 40 weeks, that's a long time. But here it is, like 4 in a couple of days, and it's just it's flown by.
Tell you what, it goes a lot faster after they get here too.
That is so true. So is Nicole wearing your shoes, Steve?
Is she what?
Is she wearing your shoes with her pregnancy feet? Your feet get real big. I used to have to wear my husband's shoes.
No, she probably wouldn't want to wear my shoes, but she had to get some different, more comfortable shoes and socks too. She likes those little the low profile socks, but she did have to borrow some of my socks.
There you go. That's standard. But yeah, you guys are so, to me, I'm in awe of both of you. You're amazing. You're good people, and you've had so much, even more experience, much longer than even I have had in the field. And I just love hearing, some of your stories and things like that you share.
Yeah.
And it
Sysco and I
validates my
figured
mind.
out that between the both of us, we've got over 100 years experience in this, and that's no bullshit. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's
I
100%
started
true.
experiencing when I was in the single digits, and Sysco did too. I'll be 61 this year, so there you go. That's probably closer to what 150, or no, not that much, 110 years or something like that. But
A little closer. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
true.
if you
And
if you
people
had,
always get us. I'm sorry, honey. I just want to say this too. People always try to get us all the time. Say, how in the hell can you remember something from when you're 2 or 3? And I'm like, look, I bet you remember flashes too.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a
Especially those
profound,
defining moments
yeah,
like that.
defining moment, it's profound. Like you remember when, mine, I think I remember it the most because there were so many teenage girls screaming around me, and my mom, because the whole house was filled with, my sisters were all teens at the time. And there's just a lot of emotion. And of course, it's not sometimes I remember not complete, like a flowing, complete um, video playing out from beginning to end. Sometimes it's more like a flat, like flashes, like almost like watching an old VHS tape or something that's got a couple of glitches in it. And Steve and I talked about this when we first got together, is trying to tell these stories without filling in the gaps, because you try to fight yourself when you're okay. Well, how did I get from the bedroom to the living room? I'm just making that part up, but so you assume it, and well, I must have walked, or somebody carried me, or whatever, and you fill that gap in, and after a while, I think that can start manifesting as it really happened. So that's the main thing, is like when I was telling Steve the first time about my story, I'm like, I don't remember exactly what happened here, but I remember at that time I was up higher and I was looking over my sister's shoulder or whatever. And I saw my sister sitting on the couch and said this, but when you tell a story like that, you try very hard to be honest and say, I don't remember how I got from there to there. I just wound up there, and then this was what happened. But when you're being honest like that, people are like, well, I don't know. So you can't win either way.
Yeah, I
The
get
best way
that
to do is
too.
just tell it.
I've told stuff, and I have, especially like we said with those defining moments, I have almost total recall. I have a near photographic memory and have ever since childhood. I can tell you every single thing about it the way I remember it. And I've had people say, "Oh, you got to be lying because nobody remembers that much detail." I
Yep.
do. I was there.
Yeah. So do
I
I.
know what I saw. I know
And
what
to what
happened.
end? Because we're, speaking of, people always say, well, you're just trying to sell your book. Let me tell you, people, each one of us has great books out there. Lynn has several, and Steve has a bunch, and I've got one with Steve. And you're not doing it for that. I mean, the amount of time when you're writing a book and you're putting down your experiences that really happened to you, you're trying to be, like I said, very careful in your wording, and you're trying to be expressive, and you're trying to be descriptive so the reader can be there, but moreover than that, you're also going through the emotion of it all, and you're trying to be clear, and without sometimes people, well, what do you think you saw? Well, I'll give you all the things I thought. you know you pick, because I don't know. This is what I saw. And as I think it's very interesting too, when you have um an experience like that at a young age, um and you talk to somebody decades later about it, and then see it all new through their eyes and get new ideas. Steve and I have done that a lot of times, and I
And
think that's where
the
most of
one
our
that gets
learning
me is when there was
comes from.
somebody there with me and they don't remember much at all about it. I've had that
Yeah,
happen, like with my nephew. He was, granted, 4 years younger than me, but we had some experiences and I remembered in great detail, and I'll tell it and tell it and tell it. And he's like, I don't remember that. But I mean, I obviously do. I'm not just making shit up, that
same.
it's
Yeah,
aggravating that people don't have the same brain and memory that you do especially when you're telling a story. But
yep. With my
That's
brother,
true.
the same. He doesn't remember any of it. Not
and I
any of
think
it.
they just don't want to remember a lot
I
of it.
think so.
It wasn't as important to them as it was to me, obviously. But again, that's
Or
not
traumatic.
unusual. I went to high school with people for 4 years and run into them later in life and like, no, I don't remember. Yeah, we were in the same class together. We were in Miss Bradford's English class. I sat on I
Yeah.
don't remember you, dude, but oh well. I was kind of a
Yeah.
wallflower anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is some there. I mean, it's a known fact, I'm sure, that, we block trauma. It may very well be, this is going to sound silly as all get out, but You know how dogs will they have like, I don't know how many smells, like 400 and something. I'm sure I got that wrong, but just put that there as a placeholder. And they can only hold the memory of that amount of scents. And once a new one comes in, one's got to go. So I'm wondering if people are like that. They only have so much RAM in their head, so they get rid of the memories they don't really want to keep and hold on to the ones they do. And I think that doesn't make any medical or scientific sense the way I said it, but I think it makes a human sense. What do you guys
I
think?
think it does. And, it's like that goldfish in a bowl. By the time they swam around, they forgot everything they saw, and then it's all new again. And I think there are people that have that goldfish attention span.
Well, and speaking of years of experience in this room right now, we have 160 years of experience, because I remember vivid stories when I was 5 and remembered seeing, because we lived 3 short blocks behind a hospital, seeing people, spirits in patient gowns walking through, and it was commonplace for us. I mean, it was like, there's the toaster, there's the door, there's a ghost, and so we didn't learn to be afraid of them. A lot of people too, I think, like what you both were saying as well, is that sometimes people, it's kind of a selective thing, and they tune some of it out, because in the generations that we grew up in, you learned to keep your mouth shut because you didn't want to be the weirdo or the one that the white coats came and took away. You didn't, the Joneses, everything was about the Joneses. I don't know where somebody came up with that name and what it looked like, and everything was, what face value. So you didn't dare. And then when you throw traditional religion in with it too, then you've got a mishmash of, you have to hide it. And then you even start to doubt yourself, so anyway, it's nice to be here with you guys, because I don't have to do that here.
That's so true. And those are great points. And not to jump in here, Steve, but
Feel free.
I never understood how people could keep saying religions, and I don't mean to bash any, because it's across the board. In most cases, it's all about love. Yet everybody comes at people with hate, like, you can't do that because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like Steve and I were talking about the Borley mansion, a very famous, very haunted. It's no longer there. The rectory, the Borley Rectory, and of course in the UK, right outside of Lancashire, I believe. Anyhow, the whole point of the haunting there was a monk and, of course, legend. And Peter Underwood said it's legend, so I'll go ahead and quote Peter. Because if you can't believe him, 40 years as the president of the Ghost Hunters Society or whatever in the UK. I mean, just a wonderful man. And said that the legend there was a nun and a monk fell in love and met in secret. They got caught. So the religions on both of the that was in charge of both of them, which is supposed to be based out of love, decided they were going to hang the monk and wall the nun up alive in the rectory itself and brick her in. And that's supposed to be your expression of love. Why not? Okay, hey, you crazy kids. Maybe you made a bad choice, and picked this, you said it was for life, but, you fell in love. God had another plan. So go ahead, we'll let you out of this and you go be happy. And, and what, I don't get it.
That would make more sense. It's not like, the mafia or a gang or something where it's blood in, blood out. That's just, you should be able to turn and walk away if God had other plans. I think you called it right on the nail there.
I agree. Right. I agree also, and a lot of times too, and again, none of us are bashing traditional religion. I do believe that there is a purpose for it. I do believe in God. So, just to make that clear, to anybody that's listening, I do believe in Jesus. Absolutely. I believe in all of that.
Same. I have the preachers come on. They've been on here several times, and everybody knows that listens how I feel about that. I believe in God.
Yeah, yep. I just think it gets a bad name. I think it gets a bad name because the representative slices that are out there are showing me more of hate than love. And I don't understand that. And it's the same with ghosts. It is the same with ghosts. Why are people yelling at me, telling me that ghosts are made out of green jello when I'm trying to tell them that love is eternal and love continues on, and your essence continues on. That energy can't be destroyed, it just gets changed. And where does it go? And hey, here we have about a bazillion gazillion stories here. Are they all fake? you
No.
know and my ghosts aren't made out of green jello. you
And
know
Lee G and I were talking about that last night, and we've referenced it before on From Beyond, which is my UFO and UAP and related phenomenon channel. If just one story is real, just one UFO encounter, just one ghost, just one Bigfoot, just one of any of that stuff is true, then there you go. That's all it
Something
takes, is
going
just
on.
for one of them to be true. And I think there's a lot of them that are.
Yep, me too. I agree. I just wanted to say that about that, because here's the thing: when you're standing up there, maybe giving a seminar or a lecture or whatever, and again, anywhere, paranormal convention, whatever, similar, and people are just arguing about this. Why can't we all start with what we're all have in common? What we all have in common is our zest for knowledge, our want or our need for, people pick yours, to understand what's going on. Everybody's got a different reason. Nobody wants to be lied to or hoodwinked, or they saw something and they're just trying to prove that something's out there so they can validate what they saw. Whatever their reason is, we have something in common, and that's the question. you know and now, okay, what did you go gather? What do you have? What did you see? Really? Okay. And I think, Steve and I over the years have really kind of peeled apart the fact that, of course, just because your ghost showed up in a Tinkerbell ball of glittery light, and then decided to manifest as whatever it did, or however it did, and acted the way it did, it doesn't mean that your ghost story that was completely different didn't happen. It's different types of ghosts, different people experiencing it. It's everything in the room. It's all the energy combined. It's the energy of the land. It's the energy of the building, the structure, the place. It's the energy of the person that walked into that energy. It's the energy of the ghost that was the if the ghost was there. The ghost might have followed you. He might have said, "Hey, where are you going?" And followed him in. We just have all these questions still, but I think we have some answers. I do believe it has to do with the individual who became the ghost. And I think it has to do with the individual who is seeing the ghost. And there's an energy connection there for whatever reason. In some cases, not all cases. In some cases, you just walk up into a ghost and, yo, there we are, you know, and it doesn't have any big meaning behind it. The ghost isn't there because it's going through the same thing you're going through, and recognize your energy. You just walked up in a ghost and there you both were. That happens too. you
Yes.
know
Well,
all of this happens.
no, and that's true. And I think that people are also people. They're born with gifts. They're born with this innate understanding. However, it's changed with nature versus nurture, and they're taught to be afraid of it. So a lot of times, people, they're trying to prove it to themselves, or they're afraid to prove it to themselves because they have this inner knowing. So even if somebody says, "Oh, there's no such thing as ghosts," now they have an inner knowing. They're just creeped out that you're talking about it. And anybody that comes forward, I've noticed a few things even on television recently where they're constantly trying to debunk it. They're constantly, I mean, they there's all of these miraculous things that are facts that have occurred, but they focus on this one little piece that was a little bit off, and that diminishes the whole thing. And all of us have had experiences, and to me, I have never ever had anybody come and criticize me or say that what I was saying wasn't true. Then again, maybe because I don't give a flip. If somebody were to, I'd be like, "Oh, well, I have a nice day," type thing. But we know, we know what we've seen. There is no doubt, and we know, that we've seen it more than once. And I mean, and some of us have been in situations, or all of us have been in situations where we have seen it at the same time with other people. So there's that validation too, you know. And but some people just aren't quite ready for it.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. If I could jump in here real quick, I think that's a very important point. And I try to try to say it on my show, you know, we get together and stuff like that, because I think it's so important. You're only going to understand what your consciousness at this point in your life is ready to understand. You might be getting held back from certain information, or you know, have you ever tried to think of something when you were a kid, and then, you know, here you are 40 and you're just wandering around the grocery store or whatever, and all of a sudden it pops into your head and you get it, and you're like, why didn't I get that earlier? Are you kidding me? I'm just now
Yes.
figuring this out. You know,
Yep.
but it's like that in the paranormal, I believe. And Steve was the one who, just having conversations with him. And then, you know, Steve, what do you think about that? What does it remind you of? And that's how we wrote the book too. We are all children in the wilderness, the afterlife, because I wanted it that way, because this is how we learn. You know, I just think that's an amazing uh, thing to still be able to do after 50 years, 40 years, 60 years, you know, where you're like, wow, I'm running around a thing in my head now that has a lot to do with one of my first, well, not first, not even close, but my first time I saw my mom. Because you remember, Steve, I was telling you about where, like, I'd wake up and she'd just be in different parts of my room, like and she seemed to always be surprised when she saw me at the same time. She'd just blink out, you know. That's a short version, but take my word for it. Now, there's something in Lynn, don't say a word. There's something that's been going on with people I know and some other people I know, and a couple of people that I've heard recently. So I figured what's happening right at this moment is I'm getting something else. My consciousness is starting to understand this, and it snaps into the ghost stories that you hear about, let's say on the Kim Russo level, if you kind of understand what I mean by that, like where she would go, a haunting of, and she'd go back with the celebrity and take them back to the place it happened, and then she'd go through it and she'd read the house. She'd go, oh, well, that ghost was here because of this. And it usually winds up being a totally different reason than the person actually thought. You know, or maybe they were scared of this ghost and the ghost was trying to prevent them from falling down a broken step or something, you know, just whatever you want to say. But it was a different reason. And what I'm thinking of now is that kind of, if you can imagine what it must be for a ghost that's just kind of, I don't want to say stuck in any kind of purgatory or crossing over place or whatever. We all know those things exist because it's your consciousness. Are you ready to move up? Think the high vibrational things, and you'll move up. We know that from the little girl who was getting tickled, and every time she laughed, she moved over. She felt like she moved into a different plane of an existence in her NDE. And she was just a 3-year-old girl, and the only way she could describe it was they would make her laugh. And when she laughed, she felt like her body would shift, or it would shoot in another direction. And when she got through whatever clouds or whatever it was that she described, everything would be brighter and the music would be louder and things would be just gorgeous. And it was all because she was giggling. And I thought, okay, she's giggling, that's raising her vibration. She's shooting up a vibe, you know? So what if, like my mom, she passes in a hospital in Virginia. I'm in way far away. I'm in New Jersey, right? I went to stay with family when she was in the hospital sick at the end. Makes sense. Okay. So I wake up, I start seeing her. I'm thinking I'm scaring her as a kid. As I grow up and go through adulthood and things like that, start studying this more and understanding more, I'm starting to think, wait a minute. What if while I'm sleeping, I love and miss her so much, my energy is connecting into hers and that's drawing her? Yeah. Or you know how you think of a loved one and they're there kind of thing?
Yeah, that makes a good point.
What if she's doing it? What if she passes in such a state, pretty much, you know, alone, other than the people that were there at the hospital? Unfortunately, a horrible, you know, this is back in 76, just the way things went, you know, and she's worried about me So much so it tethers her to the earth plane, because we know this is also true. Worry, fear, regret, pain, suffering, grief, all those things can tether. And she's connecting in with my energy when it's loose and I'm asleep. She's in the state of kind of sleep and lingering because she's stuck here. And somehow our energies are matching up just enough for us to briefly see each other for a moment in time. That kind of love, that kind of deep mother-child connection, I think that's possible because I think it happens with the living as well. And for a brief moment, they show up.
Yeah,
Does this make
that
any
stands
sense
to
to
reason.
anybody?
It makes total sense.
It does make total sense, and I agree with you because I've kind of spoken with people about things kind of like that. I've kind of had some experiences that way myself. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I know that even myself, with a recent issue at my sister's house, I mistakenly thought that this elemental in the house was holding spirits prisoner, and it turned out that his reason for being there and holding them was to protect them. So it is easy to misunderstand, somebody being there. And plus, so many people, it's sad that they've been taught to be afraid of spirits, even if they're familiar. I know the episode that I went through with a religious choice that my mother made after we had been Presbyterian for very, very long. And I mean, they scared me so bad that even when I started to see things, I would run out of the room just as fast as anybody else because of what I was taught, even if they were beautiful things like my grandmother or my aunt or somebody that would pop in to visit. And and then I would feel them close, too. And like you said, they would be connected because they loved me and not just because, I was calling on them or, thinking of them or whatever, but that they were also, keyed in that way. So I agree.
Absolutely, because the thought can be so powerful. Think about that, Steve.
Yeah,
An
makes sense.
unwilling, like just a love, just a, because we can all think of something right now that we love that much, that, and you're asleep. They're in semi, I guess you could say, almost like a sleep, like a twilight sleep, I guess. I don't know, who knows? But there's just that connection. It's not a will, not really a conscious will on in either human being. It's just a underlying current of that eternal love that in sleep or in a let go conscious state, I'm sure people could do this in meditation as well, connects like that and just surprises each other. I just think that's an amazing way to think about it because listen, in life, you could do it in astral projecting. You can do it through meditation. You can do it through other things, lucid dreaming and things like that. And then you get all the accounts too of those goodbye show ups. You guys know what I mean? Like somebody's passed and four people in the family got to see him before he just stopped for a minute just to smile and move on. And you find out that right after the person passed, it went and visited four people that night, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And what a beautiful way that you put it too, Cisco. You laid it out in such a way that it was very beautiful.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I just think that that is a beautiful thing, though.
It is
So
beautiful.
I think that somebody who had just so much love for a person too, they could do that. I'm wondering how many stories we've missed, or threw out and put in another category because it was something like that. Like say a soldier in a foreign land by themselves in their foxhole, their tent, and they're asleep and they're just thinking of home. And somebody in that home, a child, a wife, a husband, whatever, just for a moment sees that person standing there, just briefly, and you'd almost think it was a ghost, or how many times has it happened we don't even see it. Wow, that's just crazy. It's just amazing to me to think that why not? Why wouldn't it, Steve? Doesn't
Yeah.
it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
I think so.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And on that same line as well, it's like even with like the thought and the connectedness in that way, that's beyond the physical body. It's like one day you might be sitting and just out of the blue, you start thinking about somebody that you haven't thought about in years. And all
Uh-huh.
of a sudden, the next day
Yes.
you get a phone call or you run into them in
Yeah.
the grocery store. I mean,
Yeah.
this kind of thing that happens, and it's kind of
Oh,
along the same line, and it's all energetic. So
yeah. It's
I,
like their energy is coming. You know what I mean? It's like their energy
yep,
is coming. Same thing, like phone calls, like you said. Somebody's gonna knock on the door. I do it all the time with phone calls, especially with loved ones and stuff like that. And I certainly didn't mean anything where I said, "Lynn, don't say anything," but I didn't.
oh, no,
she,
no, no,
her, and
you're
I
fine.
know somebody that might be experiencing something like that because when I read it, I get innocence on both sides, and I think that that's what. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
I get innocence on both sides where both are surprised by it. And when I got that, that's what made me think of my mom. And for years, I mean, this happened when I was like 11, 12, and for years I thought, oh my gosh, I'm doing it wrong. I'm scaring her. And I told her I didn't want to see ghosts. I'd be scared. And I'm scaring her away and she won't stay and talk to. I mean, when you're a kid, you beat yourself up inside and out sideways,
Yes.
I'm doing something wrong here. Why can't I get my mom to stick around just so I can see if she's okay? You know,
No,
but
absolutely.
and then just totally misunderstanding. I think she was just as surprised. She didn't, because we always assume that ghosts have the whole book too. Like they have the whole. Here's all the rules. This is what you can and can't do. This is what you can and can't tell them. This is what you can and can't say. And I'm sure that there's somebody over there in the ascended being or whatever going, we don't want to give it all, we don't want to give it all away to them because that'd be cheating. They have to find it out on their own. Like, kind of like adults with a 3-year-old. You just keep trying to catch them before they hit the ground. But once they fall on their butts a couple of times, they learn to hang on or walk careful, or you know what I mean. It's almost like that's how I look at it with ascended beings and whoever's running this show,
Yeah. Yeah.
and whoever has the rule books, because we assume that the ghost can do that. And I keep going back to that movie Ghost when Patrick Swayze's character was just trying to move the damn penny or kick a can, and he was trying with human boundaries, I think, and
Mhm.
letting those human earthly connections kind of go like that, those boundaries, those coloring in the lines. And it's all the other ghosts are go, dude, there's no lines anymore, and you just have to think it. So if it's simple like that, a process of thought and thinking it, imagine the things that we can do that they've told us we can't anymore. Blows my mind.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole hemisphere of the brain that they don't even we're not even using, and I believe that that's the spiritual side that connects us with and our gifts, our spiritual gifts that come through that we're all born with. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm on the same page with you. What you're talking about, that is for sure.
Yeah. And I'm right there too.
Yeah. And I just think that's an amazing, to me, it's almost like an epiphany because that one thing, and I always smile when I think about my mom because what she has taught me, I thought she taught me everything she had to teach me in the first 12 years before I lost her, and that's just, where my mindset was. But now, on the other side of this, I'm going, my gosh, she taught me so much after she passed as well,
Yes.
especially in this, and probably didn't even realize what she was doing at first. And that's what got me to get it because I'm looking at this and I'm going, how would she know to do that? And I thought, well, maybe she's just thinking of me and I'm just thinking of her. And we just, boom, somehow we caught that flash moment. Like Steve, you and I talk about that where time, like the pages in a book. Do you remember that analogy?
Yeah.
Or you've
That's a
got a
good
book
analogy.
and the pages just get a little wet, drop some water on it, right? And you drop some water and pretty soon you'll start to see the words from the other side bleed over onto that page a little bit and those pages coming through. And I think time is like that in ways, like sometimes they come into ours, sometimes we go into theirs, you know uh it could be something
I
that's
don't think
simple.
it's totally linear. It's an abstract.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love that.
Kind of also like the veils between dimensions that you kind of
Right.
go into.
Yeah.
When my mom passed away, also my father had a near-death experience, and he talked about the fact that they're able to be in 6 places at one time simultaneously, which I found to be interesting because they could be sitting with your brother at the morning table and while they're in the car riding with you to work. But speaking of the sensory thing, they do cross over. They do have all of their senses, and people argue the smell thing. And it's like, look, they don't have an olfactory nerve, so it's not like walking up and sniffing a flower, but it is a memory recall. Because they think and they travel, my mother pops in occasionally, and I asked her about the eating thing with potato salad, and doesn't she miss it? And of course, she came in and she said, well, we do everything by thought. If we want to be with someone, we think of them and we're instantly right there with them. And if we want to go somewhere, we think of it and we instantly are there. I mean, there's not even a point of traveling. You're just in a split second, you're there. And when you want to, taste a food or something that you enjoyed in some lifetime, in some galaxy, or on Earth, your most recent lifetime, you just think of it, and the sensation comes to you as if you're eating it instantaneously. So, that's also very interesting too, with the fact that they can be so many places, and they do feel they keep all of their senses. Whether they passed over or not, they have all of their senses. But when they pass over, they have additional senses that they didn't have while they were earthbound. And some of the negative, and a lot of the negative stuff is shed and left behind. So they're not held back by that anymore.
Fascinating stuff.
It's good, right? I think that's the best thing. Again, I'll use my mom. When she was showing up, like I said, where it was, I call them pop-ins, because again, they always ended with me going, and her going, that kind of look, and that kind of like, why am I scaring her? It's like, when I finally got my stuff together, and you're just not expecting it, and it's never going to happen again. And then all of a sudden, bam, there it is again. You're never ready for it. Not when it pops surprise like that. Yeah. But then after, there was a time, I went through a lot of stuff, and a lot of other things happened to me. And I'm pretty sure my spirit guides had a hold of me, because that's, when stuff was happening to me, like when I got stuck in the undertow and spit out on the beach, and I was out of my body. And the time I almost walked in front of the bus and somebody just grabbed me by the back of both shoulders, back of the top back of my shoulders, and lifted me off the ground and put me on my butt on the sidewalk as the bus went, no. And I turned around to say thank you. There's nobody there. So different things like that were happening to me. I believe that my spirit guides were really trying to get me through boot camp or something. You know what I mean? I was a teenager. It's like I was always at the crossroads. Which road do I take? Right. Which way do I go? So, I think there was a lot of that going on. And it was a while. And then right before the night before I went into the Army, right before I left for boot camp, that's when she showed up again, but totally different way.
I love your version of that. If you would tell that whole story there.
Sure, I will. So, again, I'm not nervous. I'm digging this. At the time, I was so gung-ho. I was like John Wayne Jr. I really was. I was just so into Army. I was fit. I was running. I was running with leg weights. I was just gung-ho nuts. And I wanted to so overachieve. I knew I was going to have to shoot so far, to land halfway. Because again, I was like in one of the very first all-female boot camps at Fort Dix. This is back, we're breaking ceilings and glass all over the place. They didn't know what to do with us. So I knew I had to train hard. So I was excited. It wasn't nervous or anxiety or anything like that. I'm staying at my sister's house. I'm on her couch, and she's got 3 daughters, my nieces, and they were all teenagers at the time, and they had a curfew. And it's a little late. It's about 10:30, somewhere around in there. And in the room I'm in, there is a back door. My sister is extremely historically nautical colonial, go figure, but it works for her. And on this back door, it's a glass window, a wooden door with a glass window half. And on that glass window, instead of a curtain, is a fishing net filled with these shells and what do you call it? Starfish, nice, really pretty, very well done. And these big, beautiful glass, they're called Japanese floating glass balls or something nautical. So, so when you open this door, it has a distinctive sound when it opens and when it closes. And everybody in that house knows that sound because of the way that those glass balls and that net and shells hits the glass on the door. So I hear it open and I'm thinking, oh man, somebody's coming in late, curfew, So I started like ribbing. I didn't know which niece it was because I didn't know who was out of the house. And I said something. I heard the door close and nobody said anything back. And I wanted to catch who it was. So I sat up from where I was on the couch so I could look over the couch to see. And nobody's there. Nobody had a chance to get up the stairs and out of the room. And I noticed by the door, which I heard distinctly open and close, this little sparkle of light. And it's almost like just a little pinch of glitter in midair moving, kind of like going together, going apart, and then it's getting a little bit bigger and it's kind of moving through the living room about halfway. And it's like right in front of me. I could almost reach out and touch it. If I had lunged at it, I could have touched it, but I didn't move. And I'm watching this thing move, and then it gets brighter and it gets lighter and it gets bigger and more glittery and kind of misty. And it's going so fast yet so slow. I don't know how to describe that. And it just eventually starts making a larger, in the midst of this light and glittery light was a figure. And then all of a sudden it just became clear and it was my mom. And now she's no longer in the hospital gown and had the white thing, the white hospital band on her wrist. She wasn't hunched over. I didn't feel her pain. I felt nothing but warmth and love and light, and it just washed over me like somebody just opened like a pizza oven. And I'm just standing there probably like a goofball with my face hanging out. And I remember just mouthing, Mom, because she looked so good. She looked like she was going, out to dinner on a Saturday night, at the Essex and Sussex down in the Jersey Shore. I mean, she looked good. Her hair was done. She had, like just casual, dressy outfit. She looked great. Big old smile on her face, rosy cheeks, her makeup's done. She's looking good. Mom is looking good. And she's not hunched over. She's standing up straight. And like I said, I did not feel the pain. And I can tell you before when she showed up, I promise you people, it was almost like feeling the pain energy when she showed up, I think is what woke me up. I don't know how to express that, but I think I felt her pain and her suffering and her depression before I ever saw her, if that makes sense. Now I'm getting this blast oven furnace of, hey girl, how you doing? It was amazing. So there she is, and I hear her talking to me, and I'm looking at her, and she's just smiling, and I'm not even blinking twice that she's not moving her mouth, and I could totally hear her. Steve, I could smell her. Lynn, do you know what I mean? I could
No.
smell her familiar, just her shampoo. I could smell,
Yeah.
the way she smelled when she came inside on a cold day and gave me a hug. I could smell it. And through telepathically, she told me just a bunch of stuff, the short end being just short things, but very profound. You're doing great. I'm very proud of you. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? I can remember at one point I busted out, am I doing it? Because I was going in the Army. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing? She said, I can't tell you that, And then at the end, she said, you won't see me for a while, but I'll be around and I love you very much. And as soon as she said that, she didn't twinkle out. She just kind of almost like you would see in the Charles Dickens where they kind of start floating backwards kind of thing. And then just gone, twinkled out. And darn if I didn't hear that daggum door open and shut again.
Wow.
It never moved. It never moved, but I heard it.
What a great
Yeah, I
experience.
love to hear you tell that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never heard that story, Cisco.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that you shared that. That is
It's a good
amazing.
one. And it's a really nice one, but you kind of stand there and you're just like, what just happened? And I have to say that for every story that anybody's ever heard where they say, well, it happened and then I just went to sleep, and I can never understand that when you see it, but it happens because I was so relaxed. It was almost like it drained you a little bit, like they're pulling energy from you too. So maybe that's it, Steve. Maybe that's why people just fall asleep, because I think it
Yeah,
drains your
it
energy too.
does. I think it just wipes you out, and they're just like, okay, I've done all I can do for now. I got to recharge my batteries. The same with electronics and things, how the batteries are depleted in the presence of something like that. I think our psychic batteries, if you will, get depleted that easily.
Yep.
Yes, I agree.
And there's an affirmation story right there, my very own experience of how if they're stay connected to the earth, if they're bound to the earth by their own feelings and their own vibrations or low vibrational stuff, connected for whatever, the chains that morally formed through life, however you want to say it, but just being lonely and hurt and confused and you know can hold you a little bit. And like I said, the best knowledge that we could ever give out on one of these shows: think positive, think positive things. It's almost like clapping to get Tinkerbell to fly. Believe in you know what I mean? It's so intent. It's look, you can feel it when you do it now and you're alive. You can feel the difference between being sad, turning on the radio, and one of your favorite songs come on, and by the time you get about 10, 12 beats and you're starting to feel it, your foot starts tapping, you feel better. And you're singing in the car at the red light, and you just don't even care. You're dancing in the kitchen, singing into your wooden spoon. Whatever's going on, you've just raised your vibration. So if we could just get ghosts to do that, there they go. You know, there they go, floating off into the light. It's wonderful. And I don't know why we make it so difficult. And I don't know why we get involved in all this.
Yeah.
I think it's arrogant to tell ghosts that they have to leave and they have to cross over. No, it's not. It's not arrogant. You're not telling them they have to. You're telling them, like a bartender, look, honey, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, because the living have a choice too. So if you're not going to be cool, you got to go. You don't have to go home. You want to go sort it. You want to go talk about it. You want to talk about crossing over. What's your beef? You can do that. But the main thing is, I think it's a responsibility of any human being to help another human being and say, look, you don't have to do any of this, but here's the gist. It took me 60 years to get to this. If you want the information, here it is. If not, go haunt somebody's dark cellar, but don't say I didn't try. That's what it is for me. You get free will. You have it. I have it. Thank God, but so do they.
Yes, they
I
do.
just think it's sad that people treat them like pets and say, oh, well, they're good. No, honey, they're not supposed to be here. If they're working through some part of their journey, okay, fine. But look, they have to be, if you cannot leave them in that stuck, dingy, depressed, sad, angry, tied up in knots state. That's arrogant, to think that you don't have the time to stop for a minute. Those are the same people that walk past the crippled homeless person on the corner, because it's hard. You know what I mean? It's not pleasant. Well, it's not pleasant going down into a deep basement either and taking a shit ton of chances, because, you played with a Ouija board and thought you were going to solve stuff and did whatever else went on and did some ritual on the roof and planted your husband's underwear in the front yard to keep him from cheating on you. Whatever you did, you opened some stuff, and now we got to come and we got to close it. We got to sort things out. Don't tell me how to do it. Because if you knew how to do it, you wouldn't be calling me.
That's right.
Just people get crazy. Steve,
That's right.
it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so true. Steve will get somebody and they're on, and I'm like, honey, if you need help, please DM me, email me. I don't need to hear the whole, please don't tell me the whole thing, because it's sitting right behind you, gaining energy, listening to you talking about it. And then it's going to go attack your kids because it knows That's how it gets to you. And I'm trying to stop you from doing that. And you're doubling down. You know, it's like they just got to say it, you know? And I'm like, look, do you want help? We're going to start here. Stop talking about it. Do these things. Do these things in this, you know what I mean? And I'll get you somebody, I'll get you a pro. I'll get you a pro that's been vetted, you know, 20, 30 years through me, known them this long, you know, but you're going to have to do what they say too. Because if you were going to do it, you've done it your way and now you're a mess, you know. I don't know. Does that sound arrogant or adamant?
No,
I
it
think it's
doesn't.
adamant.
I think it's more adamant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it sounds adamant too. And the thing is also is sometimes people after they've worked themselves into that sort of a situation, then they want help to get out of it. But the thing is do they really want the help to get out of it? Because there are certain work that they also have to apply themselves to do in order to meet that goal. And a lot of times, because of the dysfunctional coping skills that they've created in order to accommodate whatever they have, you know, the spirit in their house or whatever, or the depression or the attachments or whatever it is, they're so used to having that maladaption that they are not comfortable letting it go. Once they're free of that, or once they have a better understanding, they want to dip back down into some of the negative stuff and, you know, kind of keep the ball rolling.
But Steve and I call that paranormal Munchausen's, don't we, Steve?
Yeah.
There you go.
That happened a few times.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's and not only that, but look, I've known cases where, I mean, again, you know, people have to realize what mediums or people that go through, or, you know, people that chaos magic, anybody that's going in to help, I don't care if it's a priest, a pastor, it doesn't matter. Anybody that goes in to help somebody else in this situation is putting themselves not only at risk, or, you know, whatever. There's a fight going on here. And you may not see the blows, you may not see the wounds, you may not see the torment that person goes through. I know one that goes home, almost wound up in the hospital helping people that are extremely flippant, very critical. They think they can do it better. They're not going to, you know, they're not going to do what this person says. You know, stop and think about this, folks. We've kind of we've got a little dehumanized here, you know, and that goes for ghosts too, because just like Hans Holzer said, you know, I'm not afraid of ghosts, are just people in need of help. Okay. So there are people in need of help. This could be you, could be a relative, it could be an ancestor, you know, at any time. So if you think of it, it's not a game, you know, it's more, look, if we're going to go in here, we're going to try to communicate, find out why this person is here. I'll tell a quick story that kind of tells a little bit, it puts it all in perspective, if that's cool. Going down to the cellar in Gettysburg, and listen, anybody who's listened to the radio show tonight, both of them just went, could we stop you? No. So, so we're going down to this damn cellar, right? And this is good people have this house. They just acquired this house. It happens to be on the edge of a battlefield and right smack dab in the middle of a lot of skirmishes. So there are quite a few ghosts camp out in the cellar downstairs. Why? Don't ask me why ghosts like dark cellars and attics and quiet corners and things like that. Time is different to them. Things look different. I couldn't begin to tell you. It's different with each one, but it seems to be a thing. And they tend to gather with other spirits, and then you've got other spirits that are there in the same place. They don't even know the other ones exist. So go figure. So we go down in the cellar, and in there was a mixture of this. There was a mom. She had two, possibly three kids. I'm not 100% sure on that, with her. And I'm not even sure they were all hers. I think she had gathered one, and I think that's why I was getting that off count. But that's just a thought. Then there was another one that kind of a very more male, stronger energy that kind of was in charge of the weaker ones, not in a bad way, but in a protective way. Like, who are you? What are you doing here? Kind of thing. And then there were several Civil War era soldiers there. Never bothered to ask them what side they were on. They didn't say. They responded to both music. We played neutral music, so we didn't ask because, you know, We just don't do that. I don't anyway. I tell them either way, you're my brother. So there was another one that kind of felt off. Now, within this, we had some that were willing to listen to us. We had to go in. I went in with other ex-soldiers. The soldiers responded well to everything we were doing. At the very end, we did our thing where we kind of connect them into the love energy and everything else. And it was lovely because the ghost, the mom that was there, you could almost hear her talking to the kids. You know, when we were saying, do you see the light? Do you see the light? Everything really lightened up. You could feel it happening in the room. Ask anybody that was there. There was like 11 living humans down there and at least 12 to 14 ghosts, maybe more. So anyway, they were all kind of bunched up in these little sectioned off groups. It was kind of wild the way you felt it, but you could almost hear her talking to the kids. And at the very end, I said, do you see that light, honey? Do you feel it? Do you feel it? You know? And I said, there it is. The love's right in there. Go get it. And she stopped for a minute and you could feel something changed in her voice. You could hear it come over that ovulus thing, I think it was. And she said, that's simple. And I'm like, yeah, baby, that's simple. Go get it. And it was so cool. Pretty much cleared out the room. There was one there that we needed to go get somebody else. And that's okay in the paranormal, folks. You got to learn when to step back to, because there might be somebody else there that these ghosts want to connect with. And it's got nothing to
Absolutely.
do with you. It's got
Yep.
nothing to do with ability or prominent, ego. All that shit's got to go, because this is all about energy and connection. So at that point in time, I stepped back, and my friend who was in the Navy, he stepped back, and we were both getting that this guy was totally different time period, totally different shape. He was there for somebody else and had a wholly different agenda. Not a bad one, but more of a protective, we got finished business to finish here. And we had to go get somebody else that could come and speak with this entity and see what it was he wanted and how we could help him. And then we had to go on the other end to the person he wanted to connect with and help on that end with the living. So there is a place for everybody, the right tool for the job, and a lot of good paranormal investigators, they know that in the groups. They've become fantastic over the past 20 something years. They really have. I know so many good ones that are really deep into it like this, and they get it. So that one, we just sorted it. And like I said earlier, sometimes you just got to give them the information. These things are possible. You can do these things. You can work this out. You can, whatever. And we're willing to help you do that. And it took another 2 years, and then that ghost finally crossed, because he was done with the living person that they had to deal with. He was there to help that living person as well. So there's so much to this. You can't just go in there with a big stick of sage and whatever else you want to toss at it, and just get on out, do whatever. If you could sit down and talk to them, that's fantastic in that situation. But please, please, please don't treat them like pets, or treat them mean, or go in there provoking things, because you'll meet some bad ones too. And we all have those stories. So I hope that gives you an idea. That's one spot with a lot of different situations. Every ghost different.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well used to illustrate that. Several points there.
Very well said. I agree. Absolutely.
So like I said, I don't think it has to do with, I tend to come off really, look, I'm too old to screw around, and look, I will give everybody a chance to, give me, because there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. But please don't tell me that, ghosts are made out of green jello, and that, there's nothing on the other side. It's just, and you know what, in this world, here's another question. I'd love to hear you both think. In this world, maybe that's how their world is going to be. Maybe they're manifesting that. Do you see
That's
what I
true.
mean? Maybe that's what they're manifesting. Maybe for them, there will be nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, I don't rule anything out at this juncture.
No, I've never thought about that either. I mean, most of with the ability that I have with the second sight and dealing with people that are crossing over, I've never seen a situation like that, but I'm sure, there are certain religions that believe that you don't go to either place, that you're going to be reawakened at a time when there's Armageddon comes and there's going to be 144,000 people that are going to inhabit the earth and things like that. So maybe their reality will be that.
Maybe
Never
more than
know.
one thing happens. Maybe more than one thing happens.
Yep, that's
You
right.
know, I
You
don't
never
know.
Yeah, I don't know either. None of us are going to know until we get
Yeah,
there.
we don't know. I couldn't sleep last night. I was hitting something, and I needed something I hadn't heard before that would kept catching my interest. Where I can just, because I have to click in the part of my brain that does deductive reasoning, or my mind just plays on tomorrow and today, and like your mind races. So I do that kind of stuff to keep me occupied, so I'll go to sleep. It's weird. So I put on, I can't remember what it was. It was just a real good mellow sounding story, and it was a guy with a British accent, and he was talking about the things that happened Skinwalker Ranch, and it was a two-parter. So it's quite a few things, and it was the early stuff from the very beginning, went all the way back. Not the show that's on now or anything like that. Way back to the beginning when you had, what was his name, Nass or whatever. I like him too, from Coast to Coast. What's his name?
Art Bell, or
No, not Art Bell. Art Bell liked him.
I know George Norrie's on there now, but
Right. He's the other one, the one out of L.A. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't think of his name
Not
right now
John B.
either.
Wells. Not John B. Wells. I actually got to speak to John a couple times, but no.
I know who you're talking
Anyway,
about, but I cannot think of his name right now.
yeah, but he deserves to be mentioned because he did so much early work on Skinwalker Ranch. Is who I mean. People are probably screaming at the thing. Tell me his name. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, they went back. Man, the stuff that happened there. This thing that comes crawling out of the portal and just runs up the side of the mountain. But the way they told this story was amazing because they brought in all of the aspects around it, all of the details of the smell, like a musk. They would smell this musk first, these different kind of things. And I'm like, man, this is just, I love it when they go back to the old stuff because I believe something happened there. But this, I don't know even what to say about the show. I haven't seen the last season or whatever, but I heard enough from the first and saw enough from the first to go, yeah, I'm not watching this, because it felt like Oak Island to me. It's like you took a great story, and for 11 years y'all been digging this damn hole, and it's just the next thing. It's the next thing. It's like that stinking rock that they were carrying around, Steve.
Yeah,
that rock from Roanoke with the writing on it.
Yeah.
It looks like old writing. It's right in that rock, isn't it? Yeah, well, there's some pieces of sand down here, and this sand is only found on the shores that. Oh, there's a kitten.
I'm sorry. I thought I had my thing muted.
It's a baby.
I've
Yeah,
got
say hi.
I've got
Hi,
a herd.
sweetie.
I've got a herd of 6 5-week-old
No.
feral kittens that were
Oh.
abandoned by the mama.
Oh no.
And so they are here with me, learning how to potty train, and I'm feeding them. And
God bless them.
I found a mother to adopt them that had kind of only had 1 kitten left, so she is kind of helping them. But I found a place that's a no-kill facility. I'm trying to give them away, but if I can't, they're going to be going to a place that adopts them out and will make sure that they get good homes.
That's how I got my babies. Oh God, that's wonderful. God bless them.
That's how I got my dog too. And I mean, we've got cats too, but we can't have 10 animals. So, it's just, but they're adorable. They're just doing so many cute things. I'm enjoying them so much.
Oh gosh, it's wonderful. Oh, kittens. Oh my God. It's just that I get my glory with them. I love nature so much, and just my whole life, with animals, it's been great. And I highly recommend it. I think those little souls have been put here just to show us what unconditional love is, and they're so supernatural. Animals are. Yeah, they're supernatural.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep turning my microphone off because they had been sleeping and now they've awakened.
You do what you got to do.
And they are all over the place.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah, we've got a freeway going through the litter box here because like 4 of them will crawl in it at once.
Oh,
and all
bless
use
them.
the bathroom. Well, they're so tiny, but
Oh
still, it's
gosh.
kind of funny because they're just learning. So it's
Yeah.
like monkey. It's like
Oh, honey,
monkey.
I've been there. I've raised more more babies. I just can't even tell you. But yeah, it's like anyway. It's Skinwalker Ranch. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and I believe there's places like that. I mean, gosh, all these. I'm hearing lately out of nowhere, Steve. Out of nowhere. I'm not looking for it. It's in like the natural news. Well, I'm sure my algorithm or something has something to do with the news they show me.
Yeah.
Believe they've shown me plenty I don't want to see, so I don't know if I
Oh,
believe
yeah.
that or not. But I'm hearing portals. People are talking about portals opening up in the Pine Barrens. I've
Yeah,
got.
you were mentioning that to me earlier today. Can you delve into that a little
I
deeper? I,
wish I
I want to
could.
hear what's
No,
going
I don't
on.
want to delve into no portals in the Pine Barrens. I don't want to go in there and not come back.
Maybe
I
you
just
go up
look.
there
The
and get
Pine
some
Barrens are
footage
creepy.
for us.
I live right. I'm in the Pine Barrens. I'm not in the thicket of it. Let's put it that way. But the Pine Barrens are so. It. There's something about them. They're just. It's creepy. When you start getting into the thickness of it, the pine trees, and then you've got these scrub trees that are real low, and it's like a thicket. It's almost like walking through. Oh gosh, I don't know if you know what creeping juniper is. It's that ground cover that's real sticky. It's like an evergreen tree, but
Yeah.
it's those briars and just all this other stuff. But there's a whole creepy feeling about this, and it's all like I want to say lower mid Jersey down all on the East Coast. So it goes all the way down into South Jersey. And this is, of course, where they filmed 13, what do you call it? Friday the 13th. Camp Crystal Lake and all that. All that's here.
Yeah, yeah.
And, well, not the camp, but, camp similar to it. And it's just creepy. And I've been here in the past couple weeks. All of a sudden, I'll see these little news articles, and they're weird the way they pop up because it's like when you open your computer, you got Bing or you got Microsoft or whatever, they'll show you news, and it's all these ads and things. And when you first open it up, of course, most of them have it, right? So it's in one of that, and I'm like, what do you mean portals in the Pine Barrens? And then all of a sudden, something else on another device somewhere else, or I'm overhearing a conversation about the Jersey Devil. All of these things about the Pine Barrens the past 3 weeks have been finding my ears or my eyes, and I'm not looking for it. And I just think that's so weird. And I've not heard anybody talk about. I've heard people talk about portals in the forest, but nothing specific to Pine Barrens. Now, me, I'm not a big Jersey Devil person. It was one of those when I first heard it, I was like, no, I'm not. It was just one of those, and I rarely do that. You know, I mean, I always put it on the shelf and always be like a possibility. But let's admit it, some are on the, that dusty, dark shelf that you probably never going to read. It's like where it's like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
not going to quite
Way
buy
back
the,
in there.
yeah, yeah. But, just it's there just in case you ever need to knock the dust off it, because that's happened.
That's
But
right.
but 13 kids and the last one was cursed, and I think there's probably some truth somewhere in there. There's a nugget of truth. There was probably a lady that lived in a really rural cabin way in the back and had a bunch of kids,
Hmm.
something along those lines, because most of these stories and stuff, like there's one famous one, I won't say the name, but supposedly had something to do with a witch. No, there was no witch. There was no witch. She wasn't hung. Wasn't, she was probably the lady that made some herbal tea. She actually lived. There was a person that had that name, but none of the other stuff is true. Everything else is built off of it. And then you've got these wonderful stories with so much fact and so many witnesses and so much that you can prove, and people don't believe them. I don't understand it. But to me, that's the one with Jersey Devil. If there's
Yeah.
something out there, what the hell would be living that long that looks like that supposedly flies? Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Do I think it was a cursed child that the mom said, I'm gonna give this one to the devil, and it shot out of her and went up the fireplace and lived out in the Pine Barrens by itself, a baby? I don't care if it's a feral baby with fangs and hooves and all kind of. It's not going to survive in the Pine Barrens without some help. It had to have been supernatural crazy before it got here. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me. Bigfoot, I got no problem with. Dogman, no problem. If you told me the government made flying babies that flew up fireplace, I'd probably believe that.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that. I don't know. It sounds a little crazy to me. And that's saying something.
So there's
I don't
portals
know. What do you
opening
guys
up
think?
in the Pine Barrens, and what's happening then? Are people walking through them? Are people disappearing? Or
I
what's
don't
going on?
know. I couldn't get any. It's just like these little. There's
Just
not any
oh,
really
by the
depth
way,
to the
there's
story.
portals. Like with the traffic report.
Yeah,
Just having a
it's just
traffic here
random
today on
people
the
talking about
I-5,
the.
and then there's portals opening in the Pine Barrens. So be careful on your way to work, everybody.
Way to work.
Yeah, I think we lost Sysco. She'll be back.
Sorry, I was just preparing kitty formula to get ready to do my nightly feeding here. So, but anyway,
Okay.
yeah,
Cisco must have hit the wrong button, and she'll be back with us in a moment.
good. I mean, this has been such an interesting conversation. I love hearing her experiences and yours too. And so I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah,
So
it's always a good time.
while we're waiting on her, what's coming up new for you, Steve? What besides a baby boy?
Yeah, but the baby's occupying everything right now. I've always got new videos coming on Missing Persons and Mysteries and on Tales Untold. And then this show is weekly. And I've got another book I'm working on. This will be my 21st one. And there she is. She's back. Okay, there she is. It's the wrong button. Fell through a portal. Is that what you said?
Portal.
There she is.
I touched my phone and I went through a portal. Here I am again. I don't know the stories. They really don't have a lot of information in them, and there was a couple places I can look and dig up and get some more. I need to find out. But I digging, and what happened was I started finding missing people in the Pine Barrens, and that's when I found that story on those two people that went missing on their RV, and they were found. I wish I could remember their names and stuff like that, Steve, but I just found it this morning. I think I sent it over to you. It's a very strange story. Apparently, very well liked couple. Nothing strange. They weren't, cooking meth in the parlor or nothing. And they weren't doing any other kind of weird chicanery, shady stuff. And they were just a nice talk over the fence neighbors and lived out there, part of the Pine Barrens anyway, enough to have RVs to go out into. And that was one of the things they did when it go out for a ride around. I don't know what they were going to see, but they did it often. And they went out this one night and that was it. They weren't seen again. And I think I recall in the story that they had not told anybody exactly where they were going. So it was about 4 days after they didn't come back where people just started, wondering what
happens in a lot of these disappearances. People don't leave their itinerary with anybody, just suddenly go somewhere. That's like literally like looking for a needle in a haystack if you don't even know where to start looking for somebody.
Goodness, I know. I mean, and people think you're being mean, especially if they're kids. Oh, mom, you don't just slap a GPS on the son of a gun and just to be. Look, do you know how many stories missing kids, toddlers, old people, Alzheimer's, mountain climbers, hikers, spelunkers, just people going off missing all the time. It doesn't matter, rich, poor, or otherwise.
Especially
Yeah.
in this day and age, you need to have a buddy system where you at least reach out to somebody and let them know where you're going and who you're with.
Right. Well, this
That
was
is
a
for
couple.
sure.
They had done it all the time, supposedly. They're out there in their own yard. I believe they said that they were found, was it 200 yards from their home?
Something like that. It was fairly close, and it was an area previously searched. That happens a lot too.
Yes. That's why I had to send it to you. I'm like, here we go again. And now it's happening out here. I'm sure people have been gone missing in the Pine Barrens for a long time.
People and then bring them back. It's like taunting those search and rescue people. Like, ha, here they are, where you've already looked.
Yeah, yeah. And they've gotten so with. I'm going to be honest, people. I'm telling you, we've gotten so used to this. We've been conditioned to believe that if it's happening, we're going to hear it on the news. If it's happening, we're going to hear it, read it in the paper. If it's, whatever. And that doesn't necessarily happen. And I'll give you an instant movie that will tell you exactly how it goes down. Jaws. Because anything that happens in a coastal town and tourism depends on it, you're not going to hear about it. I don't care how many people get robbed or pickpocketed on the boardwalk, or something happens, or shark, whatever. I've seen all kinds of stuff go down and not have anything on the news about it.
Yeah.
So
And same
that's
in the
why I'm
Smokies.
hesitant about
If
this
there's
portal thing.
Bigfoot or feral people or UFOs or a cult or whatever taking people out of the national park, you're not going to hear about it.
You're not going to hear about it.
Because Gatlinburg, Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, all those places would be a ghost town.
Seven Lakes. I mean, yeah, so many. Disney.
That's true. That is so true. I mean, there's so much that's not being shared, but it's because they want to keep people going in the herd mentality in one direction. It's all manipulation and control. The what ifs, if the what ifs were exposed to be truly what they are, that they're not just what ifs, then they wouldn't have the control that they are trying to keep.
Yep. And granted, some people know it and do it anyway. Like, I mean, if you don't know sharks are in the water, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. But they're not telling you the
video I sent you where the guy took his kayak and went up that creek where the stuff that happened that inspired the book Jaws happened? I sent you a video.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, that 1916. Yeah, it happened right out here in front of right here in
that was creepy.
Spring Lake, Manasquan,
little tunnel bridge things and stuff, and thinking, if there was a shark that swam up in there at some point, what would keep one from swimming up there again? Do they have a net or a no sharks allowed sign? How do they prevent that from happening these days?
That's exactly what they did. As soon as they put up the no sharks allowed signs, everything stopped.
the sharks knew to stay out.
They know how to read. I actually heard we had a lady that called in, and everybody's going to think it's fake, but it really wasn't. And she called in, and she was one of these radio shows out here, the morning show, morning whatevers. And she called up and she was mad because, I'm sorry, Lynn, but she had hit a deer and she was angry about it. And she said, we need to put the deer crossing sign in a much better place because the deer shouldn't be able to cross here where so many cars go by. Can't we put the deer crossing signs in a slower traffic area? But she was serious. And the morning, it was really funny because it went all the way viral up to New York and stuff like that. Because when you're in Jersey, New York, everything kind of bleeds into each other when it comes to New York stations and things like that, rock and roll stations and stuff. So they at first thought she was kidding. It was satire or a parody or something, but she was dead serious. And she didn't even understand that unless they were really punked, she didn't even understand why they were asking her so many questions about it. She's like, I just think that they should. I mean, don't our tax dollars pay for that? Who do we get a hold of? Do we get a hold of the, the city? Or I'm tired of hitting these deer. We gotta move these signs. Oh, it was funny. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you what, I'm used to speaking of deer, I'm used to South Carolina deer. I have never seen deer like the kind they had in Virginia. I thought it was a horse laying in the road. The thing was so thick. It was a stag. So yeah. They need to put monster like
they
deers
need to
on steroids.
sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Need to move
exactly. Who knew?
Yeah,
so.
That's sad. I mean, it's sad for them too. You think that they could put something on the cars or some kind of an echo, I don't know, vibe or frequency that goes out that, you can get that
they
stuff.
They got those little noise makers that supposedly frighten animals away, but I don't know. Sometimes I think the animals will come to see what all the racket is.
Yeah,
I agree.
Maybe so. Or maybe it was just a deer that just, had enough, I mean, it's got to be rough. I don't know. I just think it's sad. I always feel so bad for animals who have had to adjust their lives so much around our
encroachment.
Yeah, I was going to say our grotesque, materialistic bullshit. But I've got eagles right to my left right now where I'm sitting. I've got eagles to my left, probably about a block away in a cell tower. They got a nest in a cell tower, okay, which is so sad. And I've watched the raccoons, you know, they've become amazing. They've learned how to do so much stuff. I mean, people have to put locks on their garbage cans, and they figure the locks out. The open gates. They'll come here and unhook my bird feeders and just hand it down to the next raccoon and just open it up and eat it all.
They
And then
are
the
very
next day,
wily animals.
yeah, the next day it looks like I got candy bars going all the way up and down my driveway because they ate so much bird seed that their poop looks like Snickers Nut bars or something. I mean, bird seed's really, and it's going up. So you can't. I've done all kinds of things. I've hooked them. I've wired them, and they sit there. They figure it out. They're gonna get it. You can't put a suet out here. We'll take the suet feeder. The one night they just broke the branch off the tree, took the whole damn thing. I mean, it wasn't a
Why be
huge
bothered?
branch.
We'll just break the limb and take
It
the whole
was
thing.
funny.
We don't
I
have
was
to
like
untie it.
5
We'll just
stars.
drag it off. Yeah.
5 stars. I gave it 5 stars review. I mean, that was just okay. I gotta hand it to you. I'm not buying any more suet, but I gotta hand it to you. That was a good one. Yeah, I wired it so good that they couldn't figure out how to get it off, so they just broke off the branch. And I was like, more power to you, man.
Wow.
That's
That's a
smart
win.
thinking. They're on the raccoon's part.
I'm just telling you, that's but look, they've had to.
Yeah. I mean, you drive down the road and you might see a deer, watch for deer sign, and they're literally standing on the side of the interstate with their babies eating. They're not afraid of the lights anymore. They're not even afraid of a tooting horn. And then eventually they decide to walk in the road.
I hate to see it.
I
Love
do
to see
too.
them in my yard. I get them in my yard every once in a while. I see them going around, and I watched them eat one of my trees, and I didn't even care. I was just so glad. I'm an idiot that's going around the next day going, we're going to get an apple block, to put it out there. But yeah, we got to take care of it. We got to take care of nature. And
Yeah, we do.
I think all this stuff we're talking about is just as natural. And that's what gets me. I watch people get so upset about all, because people are upset and scared of what they don't understand. I get that. Totally get it. And there's such a realm in this paranormal. I mean, you could go everything from the Jersey Devil, and again, just because I don't believe the origin story of the Jersey Devil, that doesn't mean I don't believe in curses. It doesn't mean I don't believe that something like that be, anything like that could be out in the woods. Look, there's all kind of shit out there. I don't know. There's some stuff out there.
There's all kinds of shit out there. And
I don't
agree
think I want to know.
There's all kinds of stuff that we don't have any idea about. For everything that's been reported, there's probably another half dozen that people haven't run into yet.
1,000 times more than the devil, whatever this thing is. I mean, I don't even know how old that story is. It's supposed to go way back with like what, 1600s or something.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
So I mean, in what world, now that's what I'm saying. That just doesn't make sense to me. There'd be one creature for all that amount of time. And wouldn't it just take my words for it, folks. It'd get tired of Jersey the first century. It'd be gone. It'd be out there doing something else. It'd be out in Hawaii having a good time. I don't know. I'm just saying, why there? Now, is there something there, a creature of some sort? Is there probably dogmen out there, Bigfoot?
There's all kinds of stuff. Like you said, there's all kinds of shit in the Pine Barrens. I've heard stories out there. The guy that found a pizza. A fresh pizza in a box out there, and that was the same guy that observed somebody wearing only a clown mask and tube socks picking his way through the briar patch. But he said that was a story for another time, so I never did get to hear that one.
That's crazy.
That was one of my favorite Pine Barrens.
That's just my absolute favorite story. The guy in the tube socks and the clown picking his way very, very gingerly through the briar patch. Yeah. I bet he was. I bet he was, because I'll tell you, that stuff's about waist high. That it's it's really strange. It's almost like if I said the word scrub pine to you, that gives you a visual of just some really gnarly, short, little,
Yeah.
bushy kind of. That's what it's like, mixed in with briars.
That and briars is not something I'd want to run bare ass through. That's for
This is
sure.
what I mean. And this couple, the
Ask
one
or
that we
no.
talked about that went missing, was found side by side. Okay. And if I recall correctly, not far from their RV that hadn't, to my knowledge, anything wrong with it, out of gas or otherwise. I didn't hear, the RV. And they're laying there side by side, like you said, Steve, in a place that had been searched before several times.
Yeah, just doesn't make any sense. But yet it happens, and it happens often.
And this was, I think, 20. Do you recall the date, Steve? It was 22, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was at least maybe a year, maybe 21, somewhere around 2 years maybe ago. And I never heard a word about it. Never heard a word about it here. I'm sitting right here. My my county, my police, my search and rescue, all of that right here. Never heard a word about it. Just, this is what I'm
Yeah, I mean,
saying.
you'd think they'd come around and say, folks, there's all kinds of shit out there. Be careful. If
Yeah,
you're going into the woods, let
yeah,
somebody know where you're going,
yeah,
when you're going to be back. Take something with you, and
yeah.
be careful. But
No, they're
no,
not
it's
going to
like,
do it. And how many
they'll wait
people?
until dozens of people, and then maybe we should check into that. Maybe we should warn the people here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yeah,
and to have them check in with somebody like every 45 minutes or hour just to make sure, so at least they have a time frame of where their last, if they're hiking in the woods, what marker or what, type thing that they may be near, so that if they do disappear, they have a closer starting point to where the incident occurred.
well, that would make too much damn sense. Because look, how many shows has Steve done on missing persons, and one after the other, and some of them shows got 5, 10, 15 people in them. Steve, am I right?
Yeah,
That
yeah. Some of
that's
those are
wild.
compilations. There's
Yeah.
10 or 12 or
Well, you
more
can't just go by the
missing people.
amount of videos, and this man's been doing it for a long time, and
Yeah.
Wow.
you're not the only one. So, and y'all might not match up on every case either. So imagine the amount of this type of thing happening, and nobody's telling you. And I'm sitting here telling you, as a coastal town, Jaws. They're not going to tell you that sharks in the daggum water. They're going to open the beaches, and I'm telling you, it's going to happen. I've seen it happen. I've gone through hurricanes where they said, oh, didn't lose anybody, or we only lost 100 people. And daggum well, you saw 500, 600.
Yeah.
Your very
Yep.
own eyes, time after time after time after time, and not just here. So when you hear it happen somewhere else, you're more likely to go, yeah, I've seen it happen here. So when somebody like Elijah, Steve and I had on, remember little Elijah, Steve, he comes on after from Long Long Beach, what's it called again? Land Between the Lakes, right? So Land Between the Lakes, which is there right off
Yeah, Elijah
Tennessee.
and his sister Gabby. Yeah, they got
Oh,
some
good. Yeah,
scary
I'm
stories
sorry.
up
Yes,
there in
terrific.
Indiantown, Tennessee,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. So it's Kentucky Tennessee border, pretty much. It's right there, and I mean, just one after the other, dogman, Bigfoot sightings. Okay, from reputable people, retired police officers couldn't tell it till they were out. Just the list goes on and on. Stephen can back me on that. So all these people are having all these experiences, and the park covering it up. Name one that isn't.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, how many people go missing at some of these other bigger parks, and
Yosemite, it's a smaller park than the Great Smokies, sees only about half the visitors, the Great Smokies, but it's got like 3 times the number of missing people. So there's something going on in Yosemite. There's a major cluster there.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
And then I think the only place they don't have them is straight up the middle, right, Steve?
Yeah.
And they probably have them, but not as much, or not the same type of clusters or whatever. I don't know, but that again, I understand the people that go, like that young man. Who was that actor that just went up the mountain? I think he went on my January 14th on my birthday.
Julian Sands.
Yeah. I don't find anything nefarious about that. I think the man just went up there and got in deeper than he thought, and something happened. Equipment malfunction, he malfunctioned.
Yeah, that was up on Mount Baldy. But I will tell you, that's a weird place. There's a full pipe up there used for irrigation purposes. But I've been up there back in the 70s skateboarding in it. And we spent the night up there. We got caught up there and couldn't get a hitchhike back down. And we heard all kinds of stuff up there, people talking and laughing and stuff. And as far as I know, we were the only ones up there. So there's a strangeness on Mount Baldy.
Yep. I think just about anywhere, pick a spot that isn't. Here I am. I've got this woman, babies flying up fireplaces and stuff. Again, there is a legend everywhere. I don't get it why you got to make stuff up when there's so much other shit going on that's. And again, there could very well be a creature out there got himself a cabin we've never bumped into. That could be invisible. I don't know. But what's it doing out there since 1500 and whatever? Is it breeding with? And if it is, what's it breeding with? The Chihuahua next door?
Biding its time and waiting for its next unsuspecting victim.
Is that what's happening?
That'd be my guess.
And who's the guy in the clown mask? His accomplice? Is the guy, this naked guy in the clown mask and tube socks is like, is his Renfield?
Probably.
That's funny. Now there's a legend right there.
Yeah.
A little bit more work and we can make that one.
You can't even make stuff like that up. I mean, you hear some of the weirdest stories about places like that. You don't have to make anything silly or crazy.
What I mean.
It's just the stuff that normal people tell you is
that's
off
what I
the
mean.
hook like that.
And on top of that, they say that's the number. Like we always used to joke too, because I was raised, that family I told you where I went to stay with, very Italian, very Jersey Italian. And that world was opened up to me. So that dinner table talk was interesting because you have both sides of it. And I'm out here in high school and I was in it. And let me tell you something. When Rocky came out, good Lord. I mean, just all kinds of, and it was all this underlying, what the Pine Barrens, that's where they dump all the bodies, and the Meadowlands, and that's where they dump all listen, there's got to be a lot of bodies because they're buried everywhere, sand dunes, and you got, if anybody ever saw Boardwalk Empire, which was a great series, by the way, just a fantastically done series. But it had Steve Buscemi in it, and the whole thing is he was playing, what's his name? Nucky, what's his face? From Atlantic City back in the day when it was just coming up, it was nothing but sand, and they put in the first hotels and stuff. Listen, the hotels and the gambling places like that, all that happened before the boardwalk. Because right before he got involved, there was no boardwalk. The boardwalk was put in there because people kept dragging the sand into the hotels. So somebody came up with the idea. I think it was there. It was either, I know it wasn't Asbury. I'm pretty sure it was Atlantic City. Somebody can correct me on it. But they came up with the idea of putting boards out with the space in between them so the sand would fall down, and they went the other way, like from the beach into the hotel. And then eventually somebody decided to turn it sideways and make it walk in front of all of them. So that was kind of cool. And that's how you got your boardwalks.
I didn't know the origin story of the boardwalk there, but that's fascinating and it makes sense.
Yeah. It's simple, just something simple. And eventually it got lifted up because, they were learning the tides and the tables and, things sorted itself out. By the time you got to where Nucky and all them were, really starting to kick in with the, all of that politics and gambling and blackmailing and chicanery and, organized crime and stuff, it's wild to think of it as nothing but some sand dunes and a lot of wild grass and waves and stuff like that. And where I'm at too, we, every single beach here's got its origin, how it came out. But the biggest ones, Asbury Park has got a good one too. And it was Asbury Park, everybody's heard of because of Springsteen and things like that, and Stone Pony. But next to that is also Bradley Beach. And Asbury got its start because these bigwigs would come in from New York and they go out there and they'd start walking along, the ocean and get the ocean air. And it was a big deal. That's where they wore top hats to the beach, and women wore at least like 6 skirts and big hats and umbrellas and stuff. But he went and he got this idea, and his last name was Bradley. And he got the idea that laying out with his, in quotations in his biography, it actually says manservant. So, your mileage may vary. And they would lay out on the beach naked and take in the healing salt air, very much like Ben Franklin would take air baths.
Yeah.
And he thought it would be a wonderful, healthy thing. And he said, you know what? When we get back into the city, I'm going to buy a hotel. I'm going to build a hotel here, and we're going to run a like a health spa. And that's how it started out. It was all done by, that kind of thing for the very rich. And of course, they brought their servants with them and the people that worked for them. And that's when all the little bungalow houses started around the beach. And that's how all of this stuff grew up. And then somehow it got turned into the, like all touristy and big places, like these big theme parks and big national parks, apparently, that don't want to tell you that, you should bring protection, and there's actually stuff in there you should worry about, But at this point, if you're going into the woods without telling somebody where you are, and you don't have any protection whatsoever, and you're not aware of where you're going, you probably shouldn't go.
There's also stories I've heard of like a animal park or something up there where they let the animals go. Isn't that in the Pine Barrens too, where there's supposedly jungle land or something like that closed down, and they just left all the animals, so there's maybe wild animals remnants up there running around eating people?
I recall hearing something similar to that, but I'd be lying if I said I knew the story. There's been so many stories around here. There's just, I think what it is, Steve, is like I said, there's a creepy place that actually feels creepy. Not because you've been told it's creepy or that something creepy's gone on there. You just feel it. These places we walk into, we've all done it. And, you might be riding on the road and feel it,
Yeah.
You can feel it when you're going into Gettysburg. You can feel it when you're, all that. So I think there's places already feel like that. And then people, of course, you and I've talked about this too, about, parents make up stuff. Every culture's got them all around the world. The boogeyman, the name them off, it could be anything. The Babadook and all these other things. There's all the different, Krampus, and they make up stuff to keep kids in line, and I think some old adults, they're just mean too. They, yeah, like you have your old grandfather just, hey, go take the garbage out. Don't let the bloody bill get you. That grandpa. That grandpa.
Rawhead Bloody Bones was the one I always.
That's it. Yeah. I forget. Didn't we talk about that not long ago?
Yeah, I think we did. And then my mom had one, the Green-Eyed Woman. I don't know what that was, but it scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. Now, don't you go out there in the garage and mess around, because there's a green-eyed woman out there that'll get you. That's really not even anything frightening, but as a child, that was
it would be to a kid. Not a teenage boy. He'd run out there.
Yeah.
He said, "We got a green issue, redhead." He'd be running. Yeah, that would only work till you got out of childhood, I think. After childhood was something different. That's funny. But it scared me when you said it. Just the way you said it kind of scared me. Didn't it scare you a little? Lynn? It's like, what green-eyed woman? I don't want nothing to do with her. Yeah.
But yeah, whatever it was, I didn't want to see it. I didn't waste any time in the garage either. Because, there was chemicals and gasoline and stuff out there that I wasn't supposed to be messing with. But that was just a good story. I didn't ask her to elaborate. I didn't want to know. That was enough. There was a green-eyed woman out there. That's it for me. You can have the garage.
It's funny. I'm just thinking of all the mean grandfather, the grandpa stuff, that go out there and rattle the gas cans to make you jump and just laugh, that kind of guy, that's funny. I'm sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
No. It's okay. I was just thinking of what you were saying, about that again, the manipulation, the fear. But thinking about some of these things, and I don't know a lot about the area that you were talking about, but even in general with some of the parks and things like that, where people disappear. I mean, some of these things, like even Bigfoot, they manipulate the dimensions and the veils, and they use portals sometimes where they exit from here and enter into somewhere else, and they can grab people and take them through the portals with them, and could be a reason why, all of a sudden they've searched this area, and now all of a sudden these bodies show up because they threw them back out of the portals back into this dimension, and
Oh,
that's
I
how they
believe
found
that.
it.
I believe it. I
you
believe it.
know
I believe they take them up, they take them through, they take them down, they take them in, out, sideways. Um, I mean, is it not true, Steve? I
yeah,
mean, we've got accounts
Yeah.
of people being taken up. You can hear the wind as their cell phone falls away and breaks, or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, Steve?
Yeah.
Where they say it was such a wind, and you can almost hear this, like they were talking on the phone, or it recorded when it was doing. He's talking to a voicemail, so it recorded on their side, and they can hear it. It's just and this something else that intrigues me too is this sound of the metal trap closing.
Yeah.
yeah
Do you know
there
what I mean, Steve?
Yeah. I've
the,
heard stories of that. I've heard
More than
metallic
one.
sound in the woods myself. I had some missing time that went along with that as a teenager, but there's something out there.
there was recently some people that were doing investigations out in, and I think it was Skinwalker Ranch area, and they were taking a picture of something, and somehow, or he was taking a picture of a person or a selfie of himself or something, and there was nothing around him, but he could feel that there was something around him. And then all of a sudden, when they went back and they looked at the picture, this guy had on these navigator type sunglasses with the
Oh
mirrors
yeah.
on them, and you could see the face of
Yep.
Bigfoot in the lens of his glasses.
So
But
true.
yet,
Sure.
but yet there was nothing there. But actually, there was something there, because they were
Yep.
manipulating the veils through the portals. They were standing right there,
Yep.
and yeah, the
I
guy
saw
caught
that
it.
and I agree. I saw it and I agree. And again, it's almost like you're thinking of, is this the formula? It's the reflection back, and you know what I mean? It's like almost three times.
Yep.
And
I
it's
mean,
just different, like you're catching in between the dimensions there, or something. It's very intriguing. Yeah, they're
like
right there in a
you
lot of
said,
cases. Yes, I believe
yeah,
that.
like you said, I mean, there's so much more to it that we just
Uh-huh.
don't know, and we won't know probably until,
Mhm.
we cross over, or the things are finally exposed or acknowledged, and more people come together. And with this dimensional
Mhm.
shift that we're going through right now, that's elevating the energies into the fifth versus the
Mhm.
third, a lot of these portals and these ways that they travel are going to start to be exposed.
Yep. Yep. And I hope Steve and I've always hoped that they never catch them, never get caught, never. There's something. There's something in place that's just not going to allow it
Yeah.
in some way or another. At least not yet, for whatever reason, and I hope not. And I'm 100% convinced, and have most of my life been convinced through more of the Native American kind of belief, and not just like from one place, but it started with my grandmother, little bits here and there, but picking it up, and then that intriguing my interest. So of course I'm going to pick them up in other places too. I absolutely believe there's more than one kind when you're talking
Oh,
about
oh
Bigfoot.
yeah.
And I
Oh
think the
yes.
difference between the two types, if not more, at the very least, two types, would be the difference between a wolf and a German shepherd.
Oh yeah,
If you
definitely,
catch my
definitely.
drift.
There's more than one kind. Yes,
More
absolutely.
domestic, more acclimated, more, probably could if they wanted to go, whatever. And I think the others can be protectors and also predators. you know
Yes,
so again, you've got split groups in those, just like us.
absolutely.
Doesn't that make sense, Steve? I mean, just
Yeah.
like us.
Yeah.
why
I
why
agree.
why and I think that causes all of the tension in the people trying to sort it too, because if we can't just accept the fact that we don't have all the answers, and if we widen that space, it's like when you move up to your 40,000 foot view, you can get a much better view. And then if you can do that around people that can actually talk about stuff and not worry so much about, my story is bigger than your story, or I know my ability is more. Okay, look, it takes a village. Do you want to leave here with a little bit more answers and maybe have it a little easier on the other side, or getting to the other side, or maybe not getting here stuck, or maybe not, or maybe being able to help a situation that you're in, or a loved one is in, or whatever. Just expand your thinking, maybe not be so closed book about it. Steve and I have had guests and stuff where we've just, God bless them, but because you're being polite and you've invited them to your house. So you and they are absolutely free for any way they want to think, upside down and the other, but they're on the other side and they're a whole hog on something completely that you sorted 25 years ago. But you have to let them do it, not only because it's the right thing to do and because they have every right to feel and say how they want to feel, but they're not going to convince you. Like I said, I started this whole thing with like, please don't tell me ghosts are made of green jello, because I know better.
Yeah.
You're welcome to your green jello, chocolate pudding, vanilla sprinkles. I don't care what you're doing over there, but if you're coming over here, everybody here is in a different part of consciousness, and we're all just trying to gather data, put it on our shelves, and we can sort it as we need be later on.
And there's so many different things. Back in college, I took a class in critical thinking, and the professor was like, how can we prove that pigs don't fly? And somebody was like, well, you take them up on a cliff and you throw them off. And he said, you didn't prove that they couldn't fly. You just proved that they didn't fly. Maybe they can fly and they chose not to fly. So, with those kind of arguments, you can't prove any of this stuff. Those are, and even at the end, it was like, well, all you proved was that particular pig chose not to fly. You still didn't prove that he couldn't fly. So again, it's the same with these ghosts. It's not a one size fits all. And yes, your mileage will vary considerably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's even deeper, because why not? I think it's more complex than we could ever know, and more simplistic than we could ever understand.
Yeah,
and if we can find a happy medium between there and just let it be, and just, instead of fighting against it, kind of, wow, that was cool. Maybe that butterfly was Uncle Frank. I'm going to say it was. Why not? Whistle along, my merry way. Who did I hurt? And maybe I thought of Uncle Frank, and he smiled wherever he may be.
Yep.
My thinking is different than some other people's, because I think that's possible. And not only do I think it's possible, I think it's probable. Yep.
Yep. Totally agree. I mean, I've made mention too, with people making pact with their loved ones even after they've passed, because they can hear you. And and showing up. My sister leaves feathers, and she shows up as dragonflies. So you're bringing up the dragonflies, and sometimes she flies with my sister. One's blue-eyed, one's green-eyed, and they always show up, one green one blue one. My mother leaves hair, so all of that is possible.
Yep. And it's as individual as they are and as we are, because I do believe that energy that we were talking about before, think about that, folks. I've got friends, dear friends and acquaintances throughout my life that were remote viewers. And I used to sit and something, I want to say, the natives that I've had the chance to talk to about this in my lifetime, I don't want to single out any one tribe, because at this point everybody's kind of mixed anyway when it comes to thoughts. And there are some that are only held by Navajo, and some that are only more traditional to this tribe or that. But with these people, it was all, it's not so much you're manifesting it yourself, because there are going to be things that are what they are no matter what you think or feel.
Yeah.
But how your journey is your choice. We all go about it a little different, because we all go about life a little different, even though we all pretty much want the same thing, and we all go about fighting through it in a lot of ways for a lot of different reasons, culture and time and, just so much going on around you. What were you born into? You just think about, have you ever thought about how different your life could be if you were just born in another zip code or in another country or another? I mean,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. I mean,
It's
I
kind
think
of like
about that.
Or
the
another planet.
butterfly effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And how quickly you can change it too by doing just the opposite. Say you're in a bad situation, or people don't often think about that. Where it was always so easy for me because my mom moved around a lot when I was a kid, so it got in my blood. Very nomady, kind of gypsy, kind of. It's like no problem, pick up, boop, go, and bloom where you plant. Just the way they used to do it. And then some people, you talk to them, lived here all my life. I heard a guy express it the other day. I love the way he said it. He goes, lived here all my life, boy and man.
No.
I loved it. But how different the world looks. Not better, not better, not worse, not just different. And it's all about where you are and how you perceive where
It's
you are.
all about the journey and how you adapt to it and what
Amen.
you make of it. Well, with all that said, we're almost out of time here, ladies. This has been just amazing amount of fun tonight.
Yeah,
In closing, let everybody know what y'all individually have going on and where people can find you, and I'll put it in the show notes.
go ahead, Lynn.
Well, you can find me with Sysco on Sundays because we're doing a series right now.
Woohoo!
And the last Sunday of every month. I hope to be on with Steve again
It's been
soon.
so much fun. It's called. Tell them what it's called, Lynn.
Oh,
We're doing a summer event, and it's called. Come on the show. It's Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And Lynn and I are doing something all summer. We started. It's called Liberty.
Liberty. Yep.
Revolution Rewind, and we're going all the way back to the beginning. And we had a wonderful documentary from 1997 that we were watching. We were watching it live with our chat, having a blast in the chat, and just everybody throwing their ideas and what they thought the stories were. Like, was George Washington the cherry tree true, or was that legend, and just all the little things too, and about so many interesting things, so many beautiful minds and wonderful words that are really kind of profound today,
Yep.
and having a blast. And then we're going through Sons of Liberty, and we're going to talk about the difference between reality and what actually happened in that series, and fun with it because it's just such a fun, wonderful history series, even though a lot of it didn't happen. And then we're going into what really happened in turn with
Yep.
the Culper spy ring and all of the fantastic spies that General Washington had, and how that had to do with the birth of this country. So we're having a blast with that.
We are. And also Cisco's she's amazing, and she always puts the twist on it with the little some different tapings of different scenarios and things that have occurred that she adds in there so that people can really get the point and they can really understand it. So I'm having a blast with this. I feel so fortunate that Cisco has invited
Oh,
me.
it's been so much fun. We're going to have fun. It's been a nice thing to go through the summer. It doesn't only remind us of history, but we're also doing it because we both believe in a lot of this isn't getting taught in school. And, when you go back to the PBS in the 90s, they were kind of still telling the truth and we're mucking it up so much. And it's good to sit down with the grandkids or some, maybe watch it, or maybe you you want to look at how the Declaration of Independence, and it's not even called that. So
Right.
go in there and look at that and see what's different on that we've been we're used to saying. But go back to that Ben Franklin and what happened there. What did he actually do? And how cool George Washington was, and how he worked with what he had to work with. He adapted and overcame, and it really had nothing to do with military. It had more with endurance, belief, and an idea that he just would not allow to be killed. And
Yeah.
and it's amazing to see what human beings can do. And I think it's very hopeful. So that's what we're doing all summer. We're having a blast with it. Come and do it with us. A Journey Through the Gate on YouTube, Sunday nights, and Mondays with Steve. That's what I've been doing.
Okay.
I'm
There'll
gonna
be
be
links in the notes here. Well, on behalf of Sysco and Lynn and myself, we'll see you a little further on down the paranormal trail. Tell your animals we said hi. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Be
Bye.
good humans.
Attention all Ground Zero fans. Aftermath.media is celebrating our 4-year anniversary with a spectacular deal just for you. For a limited time, you can get an Aftermath Premium yearly subscription for only $79. That's right, just $79 for a full year of exclusive content, ad-free listening, and premium features. Dive into a world of incredible stories, top-tier journalism, and the best in entertainment. Whether you're a longtime listener or new to Ground Zero, this is the perfect time to join the Aftermath family. Don't miss out on this amazing anniversary special. Visit Aftermath.media today and sign up for your Aftermath Premium yearly subscription at just $79. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Celebrate with us and elevate your media experience to the next level. Aftermath.media, the ultimate resource for parapolitical and paranormal fans. Visit Aftermath.media and subscribe today. That's Aftermath.media.